Good morning and welcome to Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living. We are a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. And our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. And this comes from the Duwamish tribal land acknowledgement. In a similar fashion, we must acknowledge how much of what we know in this country today, its culture, economic growth and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to all their labor and sacrifices, and we acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris. So we are at the point in the service where we use the practice of meditation. So I invite us to settle into our seats if we are seated, to feel our feet on the ground, and to gradually become aware of our breath. You may do this by paying attention to the sound of the breath. You may do this by placing your hand on your chest to feel the rise and fall of the breath. And you know this because I've said it in other times, but every time we breathe in, our heart rate increases slightly. And every time we breathe out, our heart rate slows. So the simple action of observing our breath can change our heart rate. knowing that we have that power, knowing that we have that influence, I'm going to invite us to be present to times when we have had physical pain or emotional pain. We have our breath to help us manage, to navigate. How often when pain arises is our almost automatic response for it to simply go away. Stop being here. Don't bug me. With the meditation today, the invitation is to make the space to just be present to the pain. What is it that the pain has to say? What does it have to share? Our body is designed with nerves for sensation. Our heart is designed to let us be aware of both joy and pain. How many times have we continued to act as if pain wasn't there, only to worsen our circumstances? So with this meditation, consider how we might be present to pain and approach it with gratitude rather than resentment. What if we give thanks for this message to slow down, to pause, to stop? What if we give thanks that this pain is pushing us towards greater health? Just allow ourselves to be present to any past relationship, and we look at it now and we think, what was I thinking? How did I end up here? How did I end up there? And our heart guided us. Our heart might have said, you know, this isn't feeling right. But we're like, I can fix this. I can do this. What happens when we take the time to give thanks for the heart sharing its breaking? What happens when we look at physical and emotional pain as possible points of change? as opportunities to turn around, as opportunities to set a new path. Just be present to those openings. Be present to the gratitude for what that opened up. And whatever comes up, whatever thoughts, feelings, reactions, just be present to them. And allow that presence to inform. Allow that presence to bring a light where perhaps there was not a consciousness. So again, allow the breath to come in, speeding the heart, and allow the breath to go out, slowing the heart down. What happens in this space of greater gratitude, of permission to be receiving that push towards wisdom, that push towards wholeness? That push towards a new way of being. Giving presence to that. Just allow yourself to come back to the room wherever you are, with newfound gratitude. With newfound understanding. You may want to wiggle your fingers and toes. You may want to stretch a little bit. And I say, Amen. Ashe. And so it is.
You might want to reset the pin.
Reset. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having issues with the Zoom here, so I'm waiting for it to restart. So you can do
Gremlins. Gremlins.
it's a Zoom right. It's not brothers and here, it's Zoom itself.
That's a nice bell.
So, are we doing the reading or are we doing
I'm reading first.
the... Okay. So this comes from Christopher Alt. And the title is, To Change, You Have to Feel Both the Push of Discomfort and the Pull of Hope. On the first day of the academic year, I was downtown, sitting in a social work class. There were 25 students filling the small auditorium-style classroom, waiting. A few moments later, a stately-looking older gentleman walked in and introduced himself as the professor. After a terse jaunt through the syllabus, he looked up from his podium suddenly and posed the question, "Who here believes that a person can change?" Not a peep was uttered. Maybe it was first day jitters or a trick question. But he asked it again. Who here believes that a person can change? Again, silence. So after that brief pause, the professor chuckled, "You're social workers. I hope you believe people can change." We joined in his laughter, and that eased us a bit. He turned to us again. How does one begin to change? What is the basic mechanism that motivates one to change? Here are the ingredients, the core conditions. What are the ingredients, the core conditions that readies one to change? Intuiting this as a rhetorical question, he waited for the responses, and he continued. At the basic level, when you boil it all down, there's a simple calculus. To change, two basic elements are needed. You have to feel both the push of discomfort and the pull of hope. Discomfort without hope won't do it. You become fixated, apathetic, despairing, resigned. On the other hand, hope without discomfort, forget about that. It's the mark of an immature, wishful someone, aloof and oblivious to their own pain and that of others. It is only the presence of both, discomfort and hope, and I'm going to have you think vision, that gets us up and on our way. Not long after the professor's point-blank question, I was engaged in a conversation with a close friend when she shared the latest of her come-to-spirit moments. I'm supposed to be joyful, but I have to acknowledge that I've been held captive by several long-lasting hurts. She relayed a history of strained relationships, repeated blows to self-esteem, a sense of being overwhelmed with the upheavals in our nation and world. My pain feels the size of a Ferris wheel at the Navy Pier. My hope, the size of a grapefruit. At times, I don't see how anything can get better. It's as if, before anything, I needed the grace to believe in grace. My friend expressed a gross imbalance, a jumbo-sized discomfort dwarfing the dinky-sized hope. From her point of view, change seemed impossible. Then there are those on the opposite end of the spectrum. We know them. Pain? What pain? They say quickly, brushing aside any discomfort. Oh, it's all fine. The ones who never bother to attend fully to suffering, their own or that of others. Never mind that we have been at war in this country, with 15,000 children dying daily from hunger-related issues. No worries, it'll all work out. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Our lives begin to end the day we realize that change isn't going to roll on the wheels of inevitability, but only through continuous hard work and struggle." I think of all the times I failed to notice others' struggles and not bothered to be anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic, anti-violence, or anti-economic disparity because I assumed there's someone out there taking care of all of this. My turning a blind eye happens at home too. This week, a family member died. It was uncomfortable and awkward, offering affection to people who were hurting. Though I did seek them out after my condolences, I admit my initial slight temptation was to simply let it pass without acknowledging, and to rely on the other people with whom we lived to be be the source of support. As we move from winter to spring, I'm reminded that this upcoming year will provide a host of holy examples to guide us in our attempts to locate the sweet spot between discomfort and vision, the kindling point of change. We'll hear stories of people stuck in slavery, teetering close to a state of resignation at their perceived God's forsakenness. We'll hear stories about people like Paul, who confessed arrogance, conspiracy, and murder. We'll also hear stories about lost sheep and women who tear the house asunder, desperate to find lost coins. And of course, there's the prodigal youth who finds himself sitting in the mud and feces, the slop of a pig pen, eating the husks that pigs are spitting out. In each example, what disgrace, what indignity, what discomfort. Yet in each case, there's a point where they lift their heads and allow the swell of hope to inundate their hearts and minds. What is it that readies each to repent, press, rise up, and change? The push of discomfort and the pull of vision. And so it is. And now we have our community anthem, our community expression. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And finally, we are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is.
Oh, that's right.
So the words to this month's chant: my heartbreak makes me bigger, my heartache makes me strong, my heartbreak makes me figure all the places I belong. Sometimes I feel hungry, sometimes I feel full, sometimes sad or elated, so I always feel the pull of wholeness, all that is, all I am. And we'll do that, then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to we, and we'll come back to me and my and I. My heartbreak makes me bigger, my heartache makes me strong. My heartbreak makes me figure all the places I belong. Sometimes I feel hungry, sometimes I feel full, sometimes sad or elated, so I always feel the pull of wholeness, all that is, all I am. Your heartbreak makes you bigger, your heartache makes you strong. Your heartbreak makes you figure all the places you belong. Sometimes you feel hungry, sometimes you feel full, sometimes sad or elated, so you always feel the pull of wholeness. us strong. Our heartbreak makes us figure all the places we belong. Sometimes we feel hungry, sometimes we feel full, sometimes sad or elated, so we always feel the pull of wholeness. All that is, all we are. My heartbreak makes me bigger, my heartache makes me strong. My heartbreak makes me figure all the places I belong. Sometimes I feel hungry, sometimes I feel full, sometimes sad or elated, so I always feel the pull of wholeness. All that is, all I am, all that is, all I am. Well, I took that part out.
You didn't, but you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, well, he took the D out of February.
How about the RU?
So
February.
there.
Yeah. February.
Right there,
covering
her.
her base.
I said, you can turn that up. Good morning, Northern Lights. Hi.
Good morning.
You're looking at me in there. Hi, Northern Lights. Good morning. It's good to be here. So this is Black History Month, and I think it's so nice that African Americans get a whole month. I do. I think it's wonderful. I get to be black for a month, and then I'm still black. I saw a woman with a T-shirt on that said, "I am Black History."
All right.
I thought, that pretty much sums it up. If you're black, you're Black history, and you've got this history. So I thought, we get outlines from headquarters to help us with sermons if we don't know what to say. I know that there are a number of ministers I personally know who have run out of things to say, and one of them used to call me and say, "Well, what are you talking about?" Actually, a couple of them. "What are you talking about this Sunday? Maybe I can talk about that too." And we would share, and they would do that. So headquarters finds it helpful that if you can't think of anything on your own, you can use theirs, and theirs can be good seed or good ideas or what have you. So I'm saying all of that to say, so this Sunday I did use some of headquarters. So Maestro, we're going to need the slides.
Oh.
And in the meantime, headquarters was suggested that we talk about Harry Belafonte as the Black history person. I read through that and I said, I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do, I'm going to talk about one of the folks in my family who you can actually Google. We have a number of folks you can Google, but this one is one of my favorites as far as Googling is concerned, because he's my grandfather, or was my grandfather. I actually saw him once, and I didn't like him. He was very strict and stern and had solid ideas of how things should and shouldn't be. My mother could tell you all about that, were she here. My sister can tell you because she knows some of that history. But historically speaking, he was very interesting. And he was an example of pushing until vision took over. His father died early in his life, and his mother went on to raise them. He was born in 1886 to the Reverend Marshall W. Taylor, who one of my uncles was named after. He went to school. He was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. And his father was the first black editor of Southwestern Christian Advocate and author of a collection of revival hymns and plantation melodies. We have music in the family a lot. And his father died a year after my grandfather, Samuel Shinkle Taylor, was born. Grandpa he went to school. He was attending DePaul University, and he quit school and moved to Louisiana, where he entered Straight College, now Dillard University in New Orleans. He got a bachelor's and a master's degree in education. Then he served in the military and ultimately moved to New Orleans, where he met my grandmother and married her in 1920. They had 5 children. He became supervisor of Negro public schools in New Orleans and was rewarded for his good work with a school board fellowship to study at Columbia University in New York. My grandmother, it does not say this in his information, my grandmother felt New York was a rough, tumble, awful city for raising kids and advocated to move somewhere else. So Grandpa chose Little Rock, Arkansas, because according to what my grandmother told me, he wanted to help his people, and Little Rock, Arkansas was, yeah, right, was the place he chose to go help his people. So after moving to Little Rock,
He was the Department of Education at Philander Smith College. He taught mathematics at Dunbar Junior High School, school my mother went to. And when Washington, D.C.'s officials of the Federal Writers Project put pressure on Arkansas to employ more African Americans, he was hired to be one of the writers. And this is what I have found most interesting about his history, although I'm sure if I knew more about his history, I'd find that interesting too. But it was originally called the Works Progress Administration, and it changed to the Work Project Administration. And Franklin D. Roosevelt was the architect of this project to put Americans back to work during the Depression. It was called Roosevelt's New Deal, and he put about 8.3 million people back to work out of 11 million out of work. And it cost the government $11 billion to do this. And in looking that up, a lot of people went to work in the arts, preserving history and what have you. And my grandfather was called through Arkansas's government to be one of the writers who were capturing the information from slaves, from the remaining slaves of the nation, and in some cases the generation that came up once slavery was eliminated. So he was well thought of because of how well written his narrations, they called them narratives, his narrations were. And one of the things that he did was he did not use the actual way of speaking that the people he was talking to use. So he took out the D's and the M's and the do's, because a number of the people were not educated and they didn't speak proper English, and so you would be stumbling through trying to understand what they were saying, because some of the writers wrote exactly what they said. Well, we went out in the fields, and then the hounds was hunting us, and it would, you have to translate what was going on, because sometimes the words got far away from what we would say in English. My grandfather didn't do that. He got the story. He didn't give them, very sophisticated English, but he didn't let it's sort of like the Old Testament with the these and the thous. When we went to just plain English, then you understood the story. What isn't in the narration or the information about my grandfather and this work is that he took my mother along with him. And she was very small, 8 or 9. He taught her shorthand. And because back at that time, and actually I've run into it in this time, black people don't tell people the truth about things, because back in the day it got them killed, and these days it could cause them a problem or two. So they were hesitant to tell what really went on, and so because the majority of the writers were white, there is some question about the information they got. But with my grandfather, my mother would take notes. My grandfather would interview the folks. My mother would take notes in shorthand, and she was just a little girl, and they thought, oh, she's just pretending to write, because they look, and shorthand looks like chicken scratch. Someone said, isn't she cute? She's over there writing. She doesn't even know how to write. Isn't she cute? And she was taking shorthand, which Grandpa would translate later on into the narratives. So the people were more comfortable with him. He was black. There were not that many black authors in this program. The majority were white. And so he got a lot of good information. And my mother got really, really good at shorthand, which made her one of the most desirable secretaries in Seattle when she moved up here. From then on, Grandpa did get involved in other things to promote Black folks' efforts in the area. He had a newspaper. He backed up folks in what they were trying to do, and ultimately died in 1986, I believe. Meanwhile, my grandmother moved up here. I read a number of the narratives, both from my grandmother and other people's, because I wanted to see how his compared to other people's and what stories they told. And I think the most interesting thing was, I mentioned to Yvonne and Michael this morning that I got curious about more and more history around that time. And in some of the other books I read, they apparently had pulled information from these narratives to put in their books about what was going on at the time. I absolutely recognize the specifics of some of the narratives I've read. The narratives are like a page or 3, at the most 6. So there would be a piece of this and it would be expounded upon by these writers. I thought that was interesting. So one of my grandfathers, to give you a feel for how he wrote this, this was the story of James Reeves, who was a child right after the slaves were free. And so he got all his information from his mother and his grandmother and so on. So in a gathering of the information, my grandfather gets information about James's family, his great-grandmother, his grandmother on his mother's side, his mother, his father, his grandfather on his mother's side, grandmother on father's side, other ancestors, and so on. And in one piece, and his wife, and how he got married. And one piece, he talks about his great-grandmother on his mother's side. And she was in Union City when I knew anything of her, close to El Dorado, he says. I was about 22 years old when she died. She was tall and spare-built, dark ginger cake color, coarse, straight black hair that had begun to mingle with gray. She never did get real gray, and her hair was never white. Even when she died, at 113 years, her hair was mostly black mingled with gray. The overseer knocked her in the head in slavery times, and they had to put up a silver $50 in her head to hold her brains in. I've seen the place myself where the coin was placed. When I was a little fella, she used to let me feel the place, and she would say, "That's where the overseer knocked Granny in the head, son. I got a $50 in there." I would put her hair aside, but she had beautiful hair, and look at the place. Mom could tell you what my mother told her. She has seen the marks on Mother's back and asked, "Mama, what's all these marks on your back?" And Mama would say, "That's where I was whipped in slavery times, daughter." She never did like to tell the details, but the scars were awful. And through the years, Black folks pretty much never told the details to their children of the slave times, or even the more recent racism that they've endured in the South and other places. They still tried to spare the children. So my grandfather worked to right the wrongs, to encourage Black folks to stand up and be proud of who they were. One of the things that really angered my mother was my grandfather wouldn't let her straighten her hair back in the day, because he said you should be proud of who you were, and having this curly nappy hair was something folks were ashamed of. So they covered it a lot. And it wasn't until the late 60s when Black Power became so prevalent that folks started to wear their afros in pride and wear their natural hair. That's right, yeah, I could get out this far, and the attitude behind it was, "Bite me." If you don't like it, that's your problem. So moving to our first slide, Reverend Michael, if you would. So not all pain is negative, even though we're blocked. All forms of pain as such and resist them. Yes, can we move up to the top? Can we move the gallery up to the?
So I did on mine here.
Yeah.
You may have to see if you can do it on that computer.
On this computer?
And why did-
Using
Yeah.
There we are.
Oh,
If I can just get my hand, there we go. Well, let's see if it'll spread out there.
that little short line up there on top.
But let's see how that works. Okay, back to my slide. Please.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Okay.
Tough work.
Not a problem, I can figure this out. So, not all pain is negative, even though we label all forms of pain as such and resist them. Positive negativity is a circumstance that causes us to go deeper, to search ourselves, to stop placing blame on the causes of the suffering outside of ourselves and take responsibility. Oh, look, it'll settle down there. So, it says not all pain is negative, and it's saying that because we can use it to move us, as Reverend Vaughn said in his reading. If there weren't any pain, we wouldn't go to the doctor when we need to. There are times when we have something we don't even know about because it didn't hurt. Then we go to the doctor and find out, oh, I didn't know that was there. So positive negativity causes us, can cause us. I'm not going to say it causes because people resist it, but it can cause us to go deeper and to search ourselves and to stop placing blame on the causes of suffering outside ourselves and take self-responsibility. As I was working on this and looking at what headquarters sent us and what I wanted to say about it, the thing that came to me is, first and foremost, we have to admit we're in pain. So frequently we are acting out of pain. We're striking out at others. We're doing and saying things that are all coming from this pain that we're not recognizing. And particularly, you know you're in trouble when your pain is all the fault of somebody else. And although somebody may be inflicting pain, and there's some pain it's pretty hard to say this is my fault, or somebody's beating you over the head with a baseball bat, it's difficult to say this is me creating this. It's very difficult, possibly impossible. But a lot of the pain that we blame on others, the issues we blame on others, it's because we haven't done the homework, we haven't done the inner work, and taken a look at what's going on for us that is causing us to feel pain around this situation. Maestro? I think, is that the next one?
I think you jumped one.
Yeah, you did. You did. And there it is. Okay, there's a great deal of pain in life. Perhaps the only pain that can be avoided is the pain that comes from trying to avoid pain. I stuck that one in there because we do have a tendency to want to avoid pain. Who wants to rush headlong into pain? Oh, look, there's pain. I'm going to jump right in the middle of it. We don't want to do that. But as long as we're avoiding it, and you can think less in terms of pain and more in terms of what it is we're avoiding that feels unpleasant to us or scary to us or painful. We just don't want to go there. I'm aware of one person who's having major problems at her job, and she does not want to deal with her part in it. Does not, it's everybody else's fault. It's the company's fault, it's the people's fault. Nothing, she has no responsibility anywhere in it. And it's very difficult to work with someone when they're that determine that it's everybody else's fault out there and there's no responsibility. Okay, next slide, please. So, by leaving your comfort zone behind and taking a leap of faith into something new, you find out who you are truly capable of becoming. I love that. That's so cheerful. That's so positive. That's so science of mind. I just love it. No, I don't. However, there is truth in it. We have to jump past the pain, is what it amounts to. We're like, oh my God, I so don't want to go there. I so don't want to go there. When you finally go there, it isn't any worse than you thought it would be. And sometimes it's not as bad as you thought it would be. There was someone, I think it was Mark Twain, that said, a soldier dies 1,000 deaths before he ever puts foot on the battlefield. So all this, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? You know, am I going to be shot to pieces? Am I going to lose an arm? They're going through all of that before they ever get into the fight. So some of that may happen, but it hasn't happened at the time they're going through it in their heads. So by leaving our comfort zone, by leaving our oh my God, what's going to happen, and just jumping in there and then seeing how you swim can make a big difference. And yes, sometimes it can be as bad as you thought it was going to be, but at least you're through it. You did it. Maestro? I like this. I thought this was sweet. My potential, my maestro is jumping around there. So we're going back to my potential is bigger than my problem.
Now we need to go forward, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I thought I had gone back, that's what I was.
Actually, we missed a couple, but I'm okay with that. My potential is bigger than my problem. This is the turning point. The turning point. I'm thinking, there's a person recently whose wife passed about a year or so ago. And he is distraught. And he's feeling like there's nothing in front of him. There's no, life has no juice, no meaning without his sweetheart who he'd been with for over 40, I think it was 50 years. He can't see what this is saying. He doesn't see the potential for life. He's a sweet man. And, but right now he's stuck in the loss. And my heart goes out to him, and it'll just be his timing on when he gets to the point where he can say, there is life beyond this. And I truly hope he gets there, because he's so sad. And I have another friend who's stuck for a couple of years in the same thing, and it's because we forget that there is, that one, our potential is bigger than the problem, but two, the potential of life is bigger than the problem. In our opening, we say we live in a world of infinite potential. And that's one of the things, again, Ron talked about hope, pain and hope. If you can hold on to the hope that there's a potential for something better, something wonderful, something sweet, if you can hold on to that hope, just that there's the potential for it. You don't have to picture what it is yet. You don't have to get to the visualization part of it. Just hold on to the knowing that there is the potential for so much more. when Reverend Juan was doing the meditation, and he said something about relationships we've been in, and how we said, oh my God, why was I in that? I actually opened my eyes and laughed, and he saw me. Because I remember asking that question about one or two. And I also remember that the reason I was in that place is because I couldn't see the potential for something better. I was there, I was in the middle of the mud, and as Reverend Ron said, and I thought, well, I can fix this, I can deal with this, I can move through this. Yeah, right. I did not embrace the possibility of something better for myself. So, I didn't see my potential, I didn't see the world's potential. But once we begin to embrace that, that's when the doors start to open.
That's true.
So pushed or pulled. There was a saying, are you pushed by pain or pulled by vision? Well, we're saying both. You push by pain, and ultimately we get to the point where we can realize the potential and begin to dream, begin to visualize, begin to envision. And what I love most about the universe is I have gotten far more wonderful stuff in my life than I ever saw in my head. But I did have the belief in the potential for stuff beyond what I saw in my head. So I said, I don't know what it looks like, but I know that there's more, and I want that. I want to have it different. It doesn't have to be like this. It just doesn't. And I may not have the answer, but if I have the faith that it doesn't have to be like this, it can be something that makes me happy and brings me joy, and it can be that if I just say, okay, universe, lay it on me, and the universe will do that. Maestro? So in conclusion, first of all, admit you're in pain. This hurts. Ow! Ow! Embrace it. And I don't mean, oh, I love you, pain, but I mean acknowledge truly, okay, I'm in pain. I got it. And then take responsibility for it. And by take responsibility for it, I don't actually mean take responsibility for the pain. I'm actually saying take responsibility for your ability to get out of it. And that can be really touchy because we have things we're hung up on. Well, I should do this and I should be this, and we got all those shoulds going on, or at least I do. Maybe I'm the only one in the room. No, Michael says he does too. Yeah. And we're causing our own pain with these shoulds and these old beliefs. And that's one of those things where if you really look at it, you recognize you are working from something that is no longer operable. You know, I'm not going into personal detail, but you know what I mean. You know, that you take a look at, wait a minute, what am I acting from? What belief am I acting from? What value am I acting from? And how appropriate is it here and now? That's what I mean by take responsibility for. Take a good, hard look at it. Then visualize the best outcome. Okay, good luck with that. It's really very, very good to be able to visualize, to take the step, to say, and so this is how it's gonna be. It is a big jump from take responsibility and think about it to visualize it. And as I said, there's those little steps like having hope, believing that there's more, that we're in an infinite universe with all kinds of opportunities and what have you, and just believe that. And then start to visualize what that might look like. And you can play with it. You don't have to have the vision. Well, it could look like this, or it could look like that, or it could look like this, or I could have this, but I could also have that. Play with it, have some fun. Then, of course, my favorite quote, give praise to Allah and hitch your camel to a post. So yes, Allah is all good and always present, and help Allah out by tying the camel so that Allah doesn't have to go chase your camel back to you. So do something about it. Make a step in the right direction. It could be anything from a vision board to a phone call to whatever is appropriate in the situation. And then finally, and I got this from Shakti Gawain back in the day when she wrote visualization. Something visualization. It was a pink book, like the color in these slides.
Yeah.
Yes. So Shakti Gawain, her name was probably Joanne Smith, but she changed it to Shakti, and she said, okay, so you do your visualizing, and then you put it in a pink bubble, and you let it go. And I got stuck on the pink bubble. I was like, but I did get, after working with it, that once you do this, then you give it to the universe. I've done my homework, I'm good, here you go, God, Spirit, whatever you call that intelligence out there, here you go, it's in your court now, my pink bubble. And go on about your day, your life, doing your best to enjoy it. So there you have it. Admit it, embrace it, take responsibility for it, visualize the best outcome, do something to help that outcome come, and then let it go. And so it is.
And so it is.
Maestro, music.
Music. Music. Oh yes, like I said, this is one of my favorite groups these days. Come on. Thank you, Reverend Pamela. Like I had said earlier, this group has become, if not, one of my favorite groups. I love the music. They have a ton of music on YouTube. So if you're interested, it's called Fearless Soul. And I want to thank you, Reverend Pamela, for, most of all, for the history lesson. As we were talking beforehand, before service, about, we didn't learn, I didn't learn any black history, any of the, we learned white history, and that's it. And it's so sad today that they're trying to ban everything. It really irritates the Jesus out of me, because if we would learn things of other people's histories and past, we could be more understanding. You would, I don't know, we could be more open and understanding. So thank you for that history about your grandfather, right? So it's very frustrating. Oh, my little spiel went